Hey, everybody, this is the progress report for this Wednesday, October 21?
21.
21.
We've had a 7-14-21. We got a nice pattern going here.
We have a nice pattern going, and believe it or not, we only have one more progress report show before we all vote on November 3rd.
I already voted.
And I did too. I dropped my ballot off at the Manchester City Hall.
I kind of like that. I think we ought to offer that expanded voting opportunity as a regular thing.
And we should stop calling November 3rd Election Day, and we should call it what it really is, which is the last day you can vote. That's what it really is. And enormous voting participation on the early side here, and that's all good. But in any event, we are going to be involved in the election this time for sure. What we got planned for the show tonight is we had some other things we thought we would do, but one of the people we're looking forward to having with us is Senator Dan Feltus, the Senate Majority Leader. I understand he's already on the line, and we're ready to hear from him. He is, everybody knows, I'm sure, the Democratic candidate for governor facing off against Governor Chris Sununu. He's been on a TV debate Monday night and WMUR. He's been on
the Progress
Report, and he's been on New Hampshire Public Radio with Laura Kanoy. So he's had his mettle has been tested. He should be really sharp, and I just couldn't be happier that Dan is prepared to join us. Last time he was on, he was just one of two very excellent candidates to be the Democratic candidate. Now he is the candidate. And Dan, we're going to go to you right now.
Hi, Dan. We got you on the Progress Report. How are you?
Dan, you with us?
I am.
Awesome.
Bob, how you doing? Mike, how are you?
Great to hear from you, Dan.
We're okay, Dan. We're okay. We're delighted you can join us. I wish you could be here with us, but we're glad we got your very distinguishable voice. Distinguished, I should say, and distinguishable voice on our audio, and so we're ready to proceed with you, Dan. Just let me say, how you feeling? I mean, are you feeling good? Are you feeling strong? You feeling like you're ready for less than 2 weeks? I guess. What do we got? Less 13 days
13
now.
Days.
How you feeling?
13 days, working hard. Laid out a clear contrast in the debate Monday night, and we're moving forward and asking voters for their support. We got to win it if we're going to move forward on all of our issues and values. And whether it's making sure that we stabilize and protect health care, protect property taxpayers, clean energy, you name it. There's a lot at stake.
Dan, I did watch your Channel 9 debate with the governor, and I thought you did an excellent job. And I noticed you kept asking this question, Governor, will you say that you will proudly cast a vote for Donald Trump in this election? To my knowledge, he's never answered that question. Has he ever answered that question?
He's not.
Yeah.
He's not answered it. And he is, in his own words, a, quote, Trump guy
true and through.
So he said.
But look, I think at the end of the day, we need to turn the page on Trump-Sununu politics. It's been 4 years of Trump and Sununu. And are we any better off?
Yeah.
Maybe the answer is no. Not economically, not as a public health or health care matter. They both support the repeal of the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
That would devastate our health care system. They both support the minimum wage, reinstating and raising the minimum wage. And Sununu himself actually vetoed raising the minimum wage and took a pay raise for himself of $31,000 while being governor.
Yeah.
And they both give out special treatment, tax treatment, and special public benefits to their family, their friends, and their corporate special interest donors. It's time to turn the page on that. We got to look out for working people and working families of the state of New Hampshire.
Dan, I'd like to go back. This is Mike Farley. I'd like to go back to you mentioned the one veto. He set records for vetoes. Basically, put the state on hold for an entire legislative session. Would you care to talk about that a little bit?
Sure thing. I mean, people like Bob and myself and others worked hard with our Republican colleagues to craft common sense legislation to deal with the problems facing families and facing our state. And 79 record-setting vetoes, 65 of which had bipartisan support, everything from independent bipartisan redistricting to job training to clean energy to addiction treatment services, including housing services in Manchester. Part of the reason why there's a housing problem in Manchester, big part of it is because of Chris Sununu's vetoes. And you know what? Most of this stuff is bipartisan, as I said. So this is not a Democrat problem or a Republican problem. This is a Chris Sununu problem, period, point blank. He's the barrier to meaningful bipartisan progress in the state. And on the budget, which he vetoed, he wants to go back and take out the education funding we secured, which will raise property taxes on everybody. A third term of Chris Sununu means escalating property taxes. It means an inability to work together because he cannot work together with anyone.
You know, I never understood, Dan, why, we're so against a broad-based tax in New Hampshire, but people forget that the needs that people have, the government has to meet, don't go away just because we don't fund them at the state level. They all go down to the local level, and they get it added on to the property tax, which is a really broad-based tax. I'm sure you agree with that, don't you?
I do, and that's I don't support an income or a sales tax, but I do support closing loopholes in our tax code. Corporate loopholes, big multi-state, multinational corporations should pay their fair share so that property taxpayers who's taken on the chin get a little bit of relief.
Yeah.
Bob, that's what you and I did in that last budget. We got to protect that budget and build off of it. And that's what's at stake in this race. Do we move forward in a way that looks out for working people and working families? Do we move forward in a way that looks out for our communities and protects property taxpayers? Look, I'm honored to have the support of so many wonderful people in this race, including, Bob and Mike, but also Mayor Joyce Craig, everyone from the NEA to AFT in terms of teachers and 20 labor unions, and just a lot of wonderful people that are supporting this effort because we have to move forward for our communities and for working families in the state. Working families have been left behind by Chris Sununu every step of the way. And like I said, most of it's been bipartisan, that he's just thrown it by the wayside. It's my way or the highway. Well, you know what? That's not the New Hampshire way. It's time for a change.
Dan, you never were able to get Sununu to actually say if he was going to proudly vote or not proudly vote, but vote for President Trump on November 3rd, if not earlier, because we do have early voting. And that's such a stark contrast with other Republican governors in New England and in other parts of the state. Isn't that true?
Yeah, well, you got surrounding governors. You got
Charlie
Baker, Republican governor of Massachusetts, Phil Scott, Republican governor of Vermont. They've said, we're not voting for Donald Trump.
You could add Governor Hogan down in Maryland to that, too.
Yeah, that's right, Larry Hogan. Yeah. And so let's just look at what Donald Trump has done. We're in this mess because of Donald Trump. We are in this economic and public health mess because of Donald Trump. We are in a situation where we have more division now than ever before in modern history in our country because of Donald Trump's rhetoric and divisive and racist rhetoric.
Yep.
And that's the God's honest truth. And look, if we're going to move forward together out of this public health and economic crisis in a way that works for people, if we're going to deal with racial justice and climate justice, we're going to deal with the major issues facing our state, you can't support Donald Trump. This is you either go with Donald Trump or you don't. And the Trump-Sununu way, and Sununu is the biggest enabler of Donald Trump in the state, it's time to turn the page on that. We've got to move forward, and we've got to move forward together.
Dan, I'd like to give you a chance to react. I've seen a whole bunch of advertising, not all of it from the Sununu campaign, some of it from supporters, but all supporting him, that have really told a story, talked about this Dan Feltus that I don't even know. I can't even recognize the guy they're talking about. Basically, they're telling lies about you. Would you like to address that while you're here with us?
Sure. Well, look, I've been very clear. I veto an income tax. Chris Sununu knows that I'm working for working people, and he wants to make stuff up. And this is all made up, literally made up. And it's basic foundation of his reelection campaign. The foundation of his reelection campaign is based on a flat-out lie. Chris Sununu is flat out lying to the people of New Hampshire. Period. Point blank. And his campaign is just astonishing. Look, these kind of ridiculous ads that they're running. This is why people hate politics.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why good people don't get into politics. But you know what? We're going to keep shrugging it off, and we're going to keep working hard for every last vote. The people of the state of New Hampshire are smarter than those ads. That's the good thing. And you know what? We're going to keep working hard every last vote.
Yep.
We're standing up for working people and working families and property taxpayers of the state. We're standing up for health care. We're standing up for moving forward on health care and lifting up working families. That's what this campaign is all about. Chris Sununu wants to take us backwards. We're not. We're going to move forward together.
So, Chris, the next thing I'd like to ask you, Dan, I'm sorry. The next thing I'd like to ask you about is among the 79 vetoes, a distressing number of vetoes to undo a lot of hard work done by the legislature. And it came up at the very end of your debate on Channel 9 yesterday, and that is the veto of the net metering bill, which is kind of arcane, a little wonky, but that is a place where you really engaged with them. And it's very important to the city of Manchester and the city of Nashua and many other municipalities around the state. I'd like to get you to talk about that, why you don't agree with the governor's position that he had to veto the net metering bill, which would have allowed larger renewable energy projects in the state, including municipal renewable electricity projects. You could talk about that and why he's just blowing smoke up at us on his claim that this is an economic loser.
Well, look, we got to move forward to combat the climate crisis, promote good, clean energy jobs right here in New Hampshire, and reduce rates. We can do all three. That's what net metering, in part, is all about. And it facilitates some of these projects that can help reduce property taxpayer expenses for electric bills and promotes good jobs right here in the state of New Hampshire. And what has happened here is Chris Sununu, along with the fossil fuel industry, of which his brother is an unregistered fossil fuel industry lobbyist, and has worked with a Orwellian-named organization called New England Ratepayers Association. Actually,
They've been around
they
a while.
challenged net metering nationwide.
They did. And we
they
don't know
lost.
what ratepayers they represented. As far as we know, they represent exactly 12 companies. Maybe there's an individual in there, but as far as I know, it's 12 companies, and they get to call themselves the New England Ratepayers Association. Really frosts me that this is a faux ratepayer organization, because at one time I ran a legitimate one, and I really resent it. Called the Campaign for Ratepayers' Rights. We were very proud of it.
And these guys are not. These guys are backed by the fossil fuel industry, and Chris Sununu said the jury's out on climate change. So this is the perspective of the Sununus and the entire Sununu family, and that's just the reality. So look, these were bipartisan legislation. 3 vetoes of net metering, bipartisan. As I said earlier, this is not a Democrat problem or a Republican problem.
In fact, the major bill, the most important bill to increase the net metering cap from 1 megawatt to 5 megawatts, which would mean Manchester could really develop our former, dump, the landfill on Dunbarton Road, which is not going to be made into garden apartments. I mean, it's buried trash, but it's a wonderful site for a major solar installation, and it could be pretty close to 5 megawatts, and he vetoed it.
He sure did, and he's not looking out for our communities, he's not looking out for our families, and he's not looking out for promoting the clean energy jobs of tomorrow. We lost solar jobs under Chris Sununu, and rates have gone up under Chris Sununu, and bills have gone up because the driver of our bills is regional transmission costs, and we're not shaving our peak demand, which drives those costs allocated to New Hampshire. Energy efficiency, distributed generation, net metering, solar. These are the ways that we reduce costs, particularly in the mid to long term. He has vetoed those legislation. Chris Sununu's vetoes have driven up energy costs on everybody.
Dan, you've talked about health care. You've talked a little bit about the veto of the net metering. I want to steer it back to what I'm seeing in the campaign. Sununu is basically just saying, just don't vote for that other guy and putting up a straw man that isn't his actual opponent. You've put forward a lot of ideas, things that you want to do to move the state forward. One of them that I'd like to talk to you about really quickly is transportation. We here in Manchester, I think, would benefit greatly from a rail connection to Boston. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, we put forward a concrete plan on that. We put forward a concrete plan relating to housing as well. And the commuter rail, we need to move forward on. We also need to move forward on developing, in my view, workforce affordable housing along the commuter rail line. We have a housing problem in the state, and these are all economic development ideas that we need to move forward on. The jobs of tomorrow are in housing, infrastructure like community rail, clean energy, healthcare, and broadband. That's how we get out of this mess in a way that works for working people and working families, providing them the jobs opportunity of tomorrow. Chris Sununu doesn't want to move forward on any of that. Mm-hmm. Literally none of that. And on housing and homelessness has actually been attacking the city of Manchester rather than working with the city of Manchester.
Yeah.
And we put forward a comprehensive housing plan a couple weeks ago, builds off some of the bipartisan work I've done on housing. As you guys know, I was a former legal aid attorney with New Hampshire Legal Assistance, and for 4 years managed the Housing Justice Project of New Hampshire Legal Assistance, working on workforce housing, battling Wall Street banks who were foreclosing on folks all across New Hampshire during the last economic crisis, the Great Recession, helping people save their homes, helping people get access to housing. That's the kind of leadership we need right now, is to look out for middle-class families, move the state forward for them, not corporate special interests, not the people who are donating hundreds of thousands to Chris Sununu's ridiculous ads.
Right, right.
Couldn't agree more.
Couldn't agree more either, Dan. Dan, you're a young guy, you're a strong guy, you've got an incredible work ethic. I've seen that. And since you began your career, moving from a legal aid attorney to a state senator, being, the youngest, I guess you're probably the youngest majority leader in the state Senate we've ever had. And, winning a tough primary fight against a very capable opponent. Mm-hmm. And here you are going forward. What are the next 13 days going to look like for you? How are you gonna overcome the obstacles that you face to win this prize?
Well, look, honestly, it's an honor to be here. Look, I come from a working class family. My dad worked in a furniture factory for 45 years, same one, unair conditioned, doing the same job day in and day out for 45 years. My mom, she worked the night shift while raising 4 kids. Never really expected. I was just talking to my folks today that I'd be, a major party nominee for governor. And so it's just fortunate. I'm just going to keep talking about what working people and working families are going through, how we can move forward together. I'm going to fight for every last vote. Everybody matters. Everybody counts in our democracy. I'm going to fight for every last vote until the polls close on November 3rd. And let's go win this thing, guys.
And there's no doubt that you're going to do that.
Hey, Dan, what could people do? Anyone who's watching the show, listening to you, and wants to help out in these last 2 weeks, how can they get connected with your campaign? And what could people do on their own to help you out?
Sure thing. I just spread the word. Get out and vote. First and foremost, vote. And then get your friends to vote, and get your family to vote, and get your neighbors to vote, and get your community members to vote. Get out and vote. And you can go to our website as well to reach out to us, danfeltesnh.com, DanFeltesNH.com. Give me a call if you like. 568-3929 is my cell. 568-3929. And look, reach out to us. We need your help. Let's fight for every last vote. There's so much at stake, from our healthcare system to housing to economic development to clean energy to making sure we get out of this pandemic in a way that looks out for people who are taking it on the chin, working class families who are taking it on the chin, who work hard, never ask for a damn thing. They need someone in their corner, in the corner office. That's what this is all about to me.
Let me just ask one other thing, Dan. The governor's had the benefit of a lot of so-called earned media. Kind of a funny phrase because it's media you don't have to pay for. It's because you're newsworthy and you get on the TV. And the governor's had the great advantage of that during this COVID crisis by, being on TV a lot, and especially on Channel 9, but other venues too, with Dr. Chan, who seems to be doing a brilliant job as our state epidemiologist. And he seems to be getting quite a lot of credit for that. Where has he failed to serve the citizens of New Hampshire in regard to addressing this terrible crisis?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's schools. He's failed fundamentally in schools. But 5 or 6 weeks ago, before schools started up, Chris Sununu threw up his hands. He punted it down to the local level, just like Trump punted it down to the local level. He did not help our communities. No public health standards for our schools, leaving our school districts, our school boards, our educators, our families scrambling to figure out what to do. Obviously, just like Trump, he's not listening to the medical experts on masks either. And he is advocating and has advocated for the repeal of Obamacare, which would be devastating in the midst of a pandemic.
Really? He's actually done that, Dan? He really has suggested that we should do without Obamacare in this time?
Yeah, his 10-year record is to repeal Obamacare, literally. And so, I made some suggestions the other night that that's not what he supports, but that's completely untrue. He is on record for 10 years advocating for the repeal of Obamacare.
Oh, my goodness.
And if that goes away and there's a Supreme Court argument on November 10th,
right,
if Judge Barrett is confirmed,
yep,
that would be devastating to the entire healthcare system.
That's going to be a very, very difficult situation, that's for sure. Yeah. Yeah, we could talk about that too, with the intricacies of that Supreme Court case coming up. There's real reason to be very concerned about that. Not only that Judge Barrett may be on the court by then, probably will be, given the numbers in the U.S. Senate, probably will be, but Justice Roberts' rationale for being the key vote to uphold it was on the taxing power, because at that time we had the individual mandate, and that's gone. And so, on both those counts, Dan, as you know, you're a capable lawyer, we are really at risk of losing the major advance we've had in healthcare, at least since we adopted Medicare. Thank God for citizens like me. Someday you'll appreciate it too, Dan, but I'm really appreciating it right now.
Well, it'll have to be replaced with something,
but they've got nothing.
They've got nothing. But the fact of the matter is that if that's what ends up happening, if it happens after the election, one, I'm very confident that the election is going to turn things in a more rational favor.
May it
but
be so.
Even if it doesn't, there's going to be a pushback because it is popular in all the polling. People recognize when they don't have health care, they know what that means.
Yep.
And it's and even companies that were fighting it all along, they're getting on these ACA plans, and they're finding out, geez, ACA plan, they actually have good plans too, and so people are finding out that all of that BS that was spouted about the Affordable Care Act was just what I said.
Yeah,
BS.
it was.
And I got to tell you that we're going back now how many years, and we got year upon year upon year of Republicans trying to win races by lying about their opponent, as opposed to just having a fair discussion. And it continues with poor Dan having to listen to this garbage that's being spewed about.
It's worse than ever right now. Dan, we're so glad you could join us for this time. And we're happy to give you a little more time if you got more things you'd like to say that we haven't brought up in our talking with each other here. Is there anything else you'd like to add, kind of a closing statement before we let you go?
It's been pretty on message.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Well, just briefly, I for those listening, I respectfully ask for your vote. More importantly, I respectfully ask you to vote. There's so much at stake. Health care is on the ballot. Workers' rights is on the ballot. Getting out of this mess in a way that makes sense for working families is on the ballot. Paid family and medical leave insurance, minimum wage, clean energy, making sure that we look out for our frontline workers. Honored to have the support of the state police and state troopers in this race. They want to change. They work directly for Chris Sununu, but they want to change. We need a change. It's time to turn the page on Trump Sununu. Let's turn the page. Let's move forward together. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
We really appreciate your participating with us, Dan. We wish you the best.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Sure
You got
do.
13 days to work real hard. And
No,
then
no
you're gonna
sleep
do it.
till election day.
That's right.
All right. Well, you know, I think he's really running a very disciplined campaign, very
He's a-
well managed campaign.
He's a quality guy, and he's one hell of a hard worker. So it's always impressed me about Mr. Feltus.
Yeah, and he's very. I'm impressed by the discipline because he's been hammering these same points. Speaking of hammer, boy, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, huh, Bob?
I'd rather be a hammer than a nail.
I guess so.
I never
but,
understood those lyrics, but whatever.
but
You had something you were talking to me about before we came on here. And
well,
I'd like to
you
have
know,
talk about.
Dan brought it up a little bit. This whole thing about masks, I talked about it in the last show. You know, they're telling us if everyone wears a mask, we're going to save lives. And we're a big country, so if everyone wears a mask, we're going to save a lot of lives. They're talking tens of thousands of lives that can be saved. All you got to do is take this little mask and wear it in public. Put it on, wear it in public. It doesn't hurt. My wife wears one 8 hours a day at work. She works in a dental office. You got to do it to protect your customers. Well, it came up for a vote. Not everybody's wearing it. The city of Nashua is experiencing a spike in cases, is a hot spot for interperson contagion, as is Manchester. Nashua enacted an ordinance. Manchester tried to. By the time it got to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, any penalty had been taken out, so, it was toothless. But what really irritated me was the way the vote went down, Bob. They had two questions that they had to talk about with masks. One was, are we going to ask everybody in the city of Manchester to wear a mask so as a community we can protect each other? I can protect you, you can protect me. That was voted down. We can't have that. We had, I think it was Barbara Shaw said, 90% of people wear a mask anyway. Well, if that's the case, then no problem mandating it, right? Because
Right.
It's not an issue. But that was the argument she used to vote against it. But here's what really ticked me off. They then voted on whether it was mandatory to wear a mask in city offices. And they voted in favor of that one. And 5 aldermen, and a couple of these guys are good guys that I ordinarily would agree with, but Ross Terrio, Bill Barry, Norm Gamache, and Mike Porter voted in favor of that one. So they're against masks to protect everyone in the city, to protect their constituents, but they're in favor of masks to protect a small group of people in the city. I think it's hypocritical, and I think it's bad policy. And I wanted to name Ross Terrio, Mike Porter, Bill Barry, sorry Bill, and Norm Gamache, sorry Norm. These are good guys, but they made a mistake on this one. If you're going to protect one citizen of Manchester, you should be protecting every citizen of Manchester. And it really troubles me that we can't get a consensus. And to hear the baloney that is being spouted off about this stuff by these guys, 85% of people wearing masks get the COVID. Baloney. It's a lie. It's baloney. It's not to protect you. It's to protect other people. Yep. So if you don't care about other people, what do you call that?
Yep.
I got a problem with that. But enough about me. We got a caller. We got Eric on the line. Maybe he'll disagree with me. Maybe he'll agree with me. I don't know.
Maybe he's gone.
Eric, how are you?
You
Welcome
with
to the Progress Report.
You with us, Eric?
Hello, fellas. It was an interesting conversation with the guy getting ready for the governorship.
Yeah.
I'd like to say my 2 cents about, he was bringing up the Obamacare. Me and my buddy there talking about that a lot on the phone, and I have to agree with him that at this point he doesn't think that is going anywhere. He thinks it's just a scare tactic they like to throw out there every once in a while. He doesn't believe it's going anywhere. So.
Well, I like his thinking.
I agree with him.
I like his
You mean
thinking.
when you say don't think it's going anywhere, you don't think it's going to disappear because of Supreme Court action? Is
Every
that
once in a while they like to throw out that the seniors not going to get their paychecks, and
yeah.
they like to scare everybody once in a while.
Well,
believe it or not. So that's
You
just my 2 cents. So.
there is a lawsuit
thank
in the
you.
Supreme Court, though, right? There actually is a lawsuit in the Supreme Court to get rid of Obamacare. I mean, it's a real thing. It's not just we're not making it up.
I don't think it's going to work.
Okay, well, I'm glad
Well,
I'm glad to hear that.
I hope you're right.
Give it a positive attitude.
I love it.
Okay.
Thanks for the call.
All right, you guys have a great rest of your show. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, thanks for calling.
It's so amazing. We're expecting to hear from our good friend Carol Shea Porter here in just a few minutes. She's going to call in from her hometown of Rochester, I believe. But I remember when I first ran for state senate in 2006, barely missed out, but hey, it did. 2008, missed out. In 2010, for the first time, I ran for the New Hampshire House, and I got creamed. And I can remember being at a polling place on the west side with Carol Shea Porter, who at that time was an incumbent congressman, and she was about to get creamed, and it was all over the dislike of Obamacare.
Yep, 2010.
2010.
It was a big wave.
The Republicans all said, "Oh, this is government takeover of medicine. This is socialism, blah blah blah," and it was hugely unpopular. And now it's hugely popular, and this pendulum has swung entirely the other way. And the proof was
because people saw what it was. People were believing the line that they were being fed.
Well, and
and it was baloney then.
The original
it's
rollout
baloney
was
now.
very difficult.
Oh, they did a terrible job.
They
Yeah,
did a
but that
terrible job.
happens.
But
happens.
they fixed it. They got it, and people want this. And I don't think there's any question about it. And so for our caller, I hope your optimism is justified, but it's no guaranteed thing. We have a very closely divided Supreme Court, which is unfortunately
not for long.
becoming about as partisan as every other part of our society. Very dangerous to us, So the very thing George Washington warned us about in his farewell address, factionalism. We have that in probably more acute ways than we've had since right after the Civil War. When the election of Rutherford B. Hayes, which I won't bore you with, but it was a very contentious election. Maybe as contentious as what we have now. And, it's...
not on the scale that we have right now.
Well, maybe even on a bigger scale, but,
How could that be? There's more people now than there were then.
Well, okay. It was a very interesting election and very close. So there's that. So while I'm waiting for Carol to call, and I expect she'll call pretty soon, I thought I would just do a little, a little show and tell of what I've been reading these days. Now that I'm winding down my legislative career, I have some time to read stuff. Here's a book somebody lent me. It's called Fascism, A Warning by Madeleine Albright. I don't know, you know who Madeleine Albright was. Secretary of State under...
I can't think of a better author of a book with that title,
under
quite
President
frankly.
Clinton. A person who grew up in Czechoslovakia was I think a 9-year-old girl when the Nazis marched in and occupied all of Czechoslovakia in the spring of 1939, and then had a daring escape to come to this country, rise through the ranks of, high leadership to become the Secretary of State from us. But she knows from her own life how fascism comes. And in this book, she does a brilliant job of going back. And she starts out with Mussolini, who was the original
he was
fascist.
the first one.
He was the first
He was Hitler's
fascist.
inspiration.
Now, I read biographies of Hitler, and I got all that, the corporal that came from Austria and blah, blah, blah. But Mussolini, who started out as a socialist, ended up going the other way, and his infamous March on Rome, and he took over the Italian government, and he became the first fascist head of state in Western Europe. He was the object lesson for Hitler. And I really recommend this book for people that have a history interest, as you do and I do, Mike. This book is really good, and it's made my opinion of Madeleine Albright, which was sort of, she's okay. I'm now really a big fan of Madeleine Albright from Rennesburg.
I'm glad you're coming around, Bob.
She goes from Mussolini and Hitler up to, and she goes through the British fascists, Mosley, and the American fascists, and they were there in the 1930s, and then goes on to today's authoritarian rulers, Orban in Hungary, who's becoming the first real dictator in Europe since the fall of the Berlin Wall, when we thought democracy was triumphant around the world, or at least in Western Europe, and to Maduro in Venezuela, and on and on and on and on. And it is a warning, folks. It's a warning. And then there's this one. I just got to get this in. Bob Woodward, Rage. I just bought this book on Amazon, and you've heard a lot about this book, so I won't say too much about it. It's the one that documents that Trump knew in February. He knew that this virus was not just another flu. He knew it was air transmitted, that it was far more deadly than the flu, and he deliberately did not tell the American public about it because he said, quote, he was afraid they would panic. You can believe
He said that afterwards.
He said that afterwards. But he knew. And he can't denounce this as fake news because Bob Woodward's got the tapes. Trump let him tape him. I think there were 17 tape sessions he had with Bob Woodward, and he taped every one. So you can't get away with this one by going to the usual Trump thing. Oh, it's just fake news. It's made up stuff. That's the next one. And here's my third one, which I'm not quite through with, but boy, is this a humdinger. Hoax. This is the story of the relationship. Well, it's the story of Fox News, if you want to call them news. They have some news, but mostly it's just pontificators and, opinionators like Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham. They are not journalists, folks. They are not journalists. And Hannity used to acknowledge that. He's not doing that much anymore. They don't have to source their material. And it turns out that the real journalists at Fox News, and there are some, are really upset about the fact that these people get the big ratings and the immense salaries. You have no idea how much money these people make,
No, why are they still there then? Why are they still there?
Because so many Americans want to listen to them. That's the thing that I don't understand. And this book.
No,
can't
why
explain.
are these upset journalists? But yet I go to work for Fox every day.
Well, not.
Why don't you go to work for a real
but
company?
Many of them have left. The most important was Shep Smith.
Shep Smith.
Shep Smith. Shep Smith.
I saw he's got a show on CNN. Yeah, like I'll ever believe a word he says.
He was a real journalist. No, you could believe him. You could believe him.
Yeah,
you're wrong about that.
Give back your paycheck, then, man.
No, he got a big paycheck, but he gave it up, and he's now on a network that doesn't have the ratings that Fox does. But he was a genuine journalist. Chris Wallace.
You lie with dogs, you get the fleas. I don't care, man.
He stopped doing that. He said, "I'm getting out of this."
Okay, well, after he's done, it takes a while.
Yeah, so he got out of there, and there's been others that have left too. But this is unbelievable, and the money these people make is just shocking. And Trump, it's a real good question whether Trump depends more on Fox or Fox depends more on Trump. It's totally symbiotic.
That's simple. Trump depends more. Fox will be around long after Trump.
I think you may be right.
Trump was like bait for Fox to make money.
Yeah.
Trump is a worm on Fox's hook.
Yeah.
He is nothing to them. They will be around long after because there are a certain group of people don't really want to look into anything. They will believe anything that's fed to them.
Yeah.
And Fox is right there for them, giving them their candy every day.
This is just absolutely shocking. And another aspect of the whole Fox culture is it's misogynist. Starting with Roger Ailes, who eventually had to leave.
Do you really have to even say that? Does not everybody just know that instinctively?
I don't think everybody does know that. And what they did to Gretchen Carlson, who was the first one to sue them. Okay, we got a call. Oh,
you don't want to carry on with this? Okay, we'll abruptly stop. We have a great guest calling in.
Guest coming on.
Let's give her a shot.
Hi, Carol.
Hi, Bob.
Carol.
Hi there. How are you?
Oh, we're just great. We're having a best time. We had a great conversation with Dan Feltus. He just left us, but I thought he acquitted himself very, very well. And we're so happy to welcome you on and right now to this. We're in the final part of our show. We got several minutes we can spend with you, though. We're looking forward to it. So
I'm honored to be here.
Well, it's wonderful. You've been a good friend of us on the show, and we remember you fondly as our first district congressperson. And you're not slowing down. Why don't you just tell us about what's going on with you now? And you have not exactly ridden off into the sunset. You're still doing a heck of a lot of stuff. Maybe you can tell us about some of the things you're doing and give us your analysis of where we are in this unbelievably important election.
Okay, sure. Thank you. So, I said when I left Congress, when I retired, that I couldn't just turn my back and walk away. I felt it would be unpatriotic given the very grave situation we find ourselves in with Donald Trump and with Republicans in the Senate. So I have stayed active, and I work on a number of things, but my biggest thing that I'm doing right now is doing everything I can to get Joe Biden elected. So it's been a great honor for me to be able to speak for him at places and to talk to people about what his plan is to rebuild America back better, which I just love.
That's a great slogan.
It is a great slogan. It's a terrific slogan. And doing things like I'll do radio. I do a little of this, a little of that. I do press conferences, whatever it takes to help. And then, of course, I'm also helping with other races because we have to. We know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are going to need a team of people in the state that they can work with. And so it's been a great thing for me because I do really enjoy politics and I really love the cause here. And I'm also sufficiently terrified of Donald Trump's second term so that no matter what,
that's a motivator.
This is where I'm devoting my energy. However, I am doing one other thing that I'm just loving. I'm now a grandmother of 2 babies, and so it's just a great joy. I said at the time that I just needed to see. At the time, I had one little grandson. I just needed to see, and I needed him grow, and I needed to see my family more, and that's exactly what I've been blessed to do. So
that's nice.
I'm having a very good life. The COVID situation is a nightmare, an absolute nightmare for everybody. And, of course, we also have to do all the things like wear a mask. We don't go inside. We pick up our groceries in the parking lot, at Hannaford's. And we do all those things to stay well because, my husband's had some health issues, but he's good, and we plan to stay that way. But my heart breaks for the families. My heart breaks for people who are isolated, living alone, or who are struggling because they don't have enough money to see them through. Maybe their business has let them go. Maybe it is their business that they've lost. It's just heartbreaking. So for all these reasons, we need to work really, really hard so that we can bring America back.
Yeah. So we got 13 days to go before the last day to vote arrives. It's really not election day. It is actually the last day to vote. Lots of people have voted. What's your plan for activity in the last 13 days?
Well, I think I haven't done anything inside because, of COVID. I have to be very careful. But I did do one outside event with Jill Biden a couple of weeks ago. I went to that. It was for veterans. And I am going to do one next week, I believe, a rally, but outside and a good distance away from everybody,
Yeah.
So the other thing is that we are working with the grassroots and trying to push information to people so that they know, for example, how to vote, where to vote if they're going someplace, and they know exactly how to fill out a ballot. And I'm also working on other issues. I'm very, very concerned about fair elections and too much money in the elections. So I stepped in and taken a role in that too. And there's just so much to do. You know that.
Yeah.
So much to do.
Oh, there's plenty to do. Yeah.
Right. So as we're approaching Election Day, I urge everybody to make sure their voice counts. We are struggling as a nation. I do think we'll heal, but we are struggling as a nation. And the best way to send a message about the direction that you want to go in is to go vote.
Yeah.
And make sure you're heard.
Carol, Mike Farley here. You're
Hi, Mike.
How are you? How have you been? Good to hear from you. And I'm congratulations on the second grandchild. That's an excellent thing. I'm sure you'll do a great job as a grandmother.
It's a great gig.
Well, I want you to know before I came on, I just finished reading Frog and Toad for the millionth time, and I love Frog and Toad.
Hey, you know it's very important to read to kids. That has that you get a return on investment there. So good job. I want to talk about CD1. I consider you an expert. It's a very tricky district. They call it a swing district. It's a swing district if you push, you know.
Well, it's just a tougher district
Yeah,
for the Democrats
yeah,
in District
yeah.
2.
Yes.
So, you know, we have a great congressman. I'm sure you'll agree. Chris Pappas, before he was a congressman, was a great guy in all of the elected positions he had. He worked very hard and did a superb job. And I think since going to Washington, he's done an absolutely fantastic job for us here in CD1. And you have this guy coming in, kind of swooping in at the last minute from out of state, saying some really nasty things about him. How do you think that flies in CD1? You've got the experience. I'd just like you to talk a little bit about that.
I do. I remember all the debates that I had with Frank Ginta, and their style of debate is remarkably similar. I don't know, you know, it's like they're reading out the same tired GOP handbook. Attack Nancy, attack your opponent, attack Nancy, attack your opponent. Mm-hmm. You know, it's been awful. I watched a little bit of the debate, but we taped it so that we can see the rest of it. But it seemed like the first minute, you know, he was out there and talking over Chris and just being really, really too aggressive, I think. And so I recognize what's going on here, and it reminds me of that. But the reason for this is that there is a deep divide, as you know, in the first district. It is a tough district. You know, I point out to people, if you want to know how tough it is, I won this district and Donald Trump won this district in 2016. Think about that.
Yeah, that's pretty extraordinary.
Different. It is extraordinary. So it goes to show that we've got people and opinions and ideas and philosophies like all over the place, right, about what they're looking for. But I think that I know that Chris has been very diligent, that he's really worked hard for this district, and that he has a calm demeanor, and that he knows, you know, he's very capable, he's very competent, and he's something else, he's pleasant. And I think that we're all exhausted.
Yeah, he's a hard guy to dislike, even if you don't support him politically. Yep.
Right. This started in the Tea Party in 2010, when all of a sudden we saw a very different kind of politics, as you know, very different, where they were really rough, very rough. And this has continued. I remember in 2010, they had a booklet, the Tea Party had a booklet that they handed out, and it was called Town Hall Hell. And the idea was, as soon as a Democratic incumbent started to speak, they were to start shouting. They told people to start shouting and shouting them down. And it was not the way that we...
Yeah, that's not the New Hampshire way.
It's not the New Hampshire way. And this is like a continuation now. So I understand that people don't see things the same way. You know, I come from a Republican family. You know that. We had real differences in opinion. But never did we act like this. So this is distressing. But this time, I think it's not going to work because people are exhausted from Donald Trump being like this. They're exhausted watching this, and people just want other people to calm down, say what you're doing, you know, give the other person a chance to talk.
Yeah. Carol, I got a question for you that's really troubling me. If Trump is defeated, may it be so, especially if he's not just a squeaker, but he's, you know, it's enough so he won't be able to, you know, try and, you know, have the Supreme Court change the election results like maybe they did in Gore v. Bush. If that all happens, I'm afraid it's not the end of Trumpism. Do you share that fear, or do you think that if Trump goes, Trumpism goes with it?
I think there's always going to be an element, but I have great respect for people in the Republican Party who are not Trumpers, who are desperately trying to pull their party back from Donald Trump. And so I know that you can see, you've got the Lincoln Project.
Yep.
Jennifer Horn
here in New Hampshire. Yeah.
Jennifer Horn, a great example, and you know, many
Chuck
others.
Douglas.
Chuck Douglas, Brad
all
Cook.
Of them.
Yeah.
Yes, because what they're doing is they're saying country over party.
Yeah.
So my hope is that what we'll see, and I do believe that Donald Trump is going to lose, but I hope that what we're going to see is people who are going to step back from Donald Trump's America and say, no, all that's happened is that we've all been divided, we fight, we have more problems with our neighbors, our friends, our workers, our community, and that it's not working to be like that, that we want compassion, understanding, we want people to be listening to one another, and that the Republicans who want their party back will be leading the way, and they will be able to either persuade people that did move over to the Trump side to join them, or that they will just kind of try to move on, piece the party back together again without that. Now, I will tell you that I do think that I think we need two healthy parties, so I'm not happy about this, I can tell you.
I agree with you entirely.
Political parties in this country.
I'm not so sure I'm on board with that philosophy, but okay.
Yep. Well, I do remember in 2010, I saw Michelle Bachmann at the Capitol one day as I was coming back from voting, and she was a big Tea Partier, as you know, and I saw John Boehner and Eric, who was the majority leader, I forget,
Eric
minority
Cantor?
leader, or whatever the title was, and I saw them standing behind Michelle as she gave this Michelle kind of speech, and I said, wow, it's like they are now her foot soldiers instead of the other way around. And I went back and I said to my staff, it looks like they're turning the party over to the Tea Party. So I think they had a lot of missteps in 2010, and they made deals, with the far right and their wing, and it hasn't worked out for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I have no problem with 30% of the country staying out there in crazy land, and we can just thump them every 4 years. I have no problem with that. I'm not looking to see a rebuilt
I'm with Carol. I would
Republican
hope
Party.
for better. I would hope for a Republican Party that you could disagree with, but still respect.
But they've moved. That's when I was a kid. I haven't seen that in years and years and years.
Yeah.
What are they going to? I don't think they can't go back far enough. They're so far gone. I don't think they can come back. And I say good riddance to
the
them.
media landscape is so now corrupted. I mean, that's a big
Right.
problem.
And we have to have changes, obviously. But I'm hopeful. I'm ever hopeful. I believe in the American people. I believe in their goodness. I was watching President Barack Obama talking earlier today.
Yeah.
Always inspiring and always trying to unite people. And I grew up in a family that was Republican. So I know that, they're not always wrong. They're not.
Yeah.
But the problem is that they have strayed so far, far out.
Yeah.
That's my point, Carol. The family that
Right.
you grew up in is not the Republicans that we're talking about now. That they've moved off.
But she's right. There are some that are trying to get that back. I mean, there are
Yes.
people that are far more conservative than you and I and Carol, like George Will, like Brad Cook, like some of the other ones that Carol mentioned. Governor Wells.
I guess I can respect
they
that.
punish their own if they try to work with Democrats. I remember when I was asked on TV if I had any Republican friends, and I said yes, and they said who? And I started to name the first one, and I can say it now. He died. I loved him, but it was Walter Jones. Wonderful man, absolutely wonderful man. And I stopped because I knew he was in a primary, and that was the use against him to be friends with a Democrat.
Yeah.
And so, and I thought that was really, really sad, really sad.
Yeah.
It has to be the point, none of us are perfect. We all know that. None of us are. But the last time I saw John McCain was maybe a week before he took the vote, for the health care, right? And he came out of a restaurant and spotted me. And I was sitting with my chief of staff, and he came over, started talking to us about how much he loved New Hampshire and all these other things. And a real warm conversation there.
Yeah.
And when he walked away, and he had his head looked awful because he's already, had his surgery. And when he walked away, I looked at him and I thought to myself, now there is a man we know is a hero. We know what he did, in Vietnam, but continued even though he would be angry and, on the floor, and I like how Cindy McCain says how they could fight like hell on the floor, right? With Biden and McCain.
Yeah.
But after you left, he was as pleasant and nice as could be, because he was only fighting us over issues. He was never fighting us over our humanity. He recognized the humanity in each one of us, regardless of our political party. And isn't that what we all want?
Yeah, that's uplifting.
And I have to say, Carol, one of my fondest memories of John McCain, and I have to say I did not witness this personally, but I did see it on TV when he was at some rally. I can't remember if it was here in New Hampshire or elsewhere, and some woman came up and said,
Oh, yes,
"You remember this?
I do.
Isn't
yes.
Obama a Muslim, and wasn't he born in a foreign country, and isn't he against
and
America?" And McCain,
His response was
Can you
excellent.
imagine Trump saying this? McCain said, "No, ma'am, that's not right. He's a good family man. We just happen to have differences on policy." I mean,
Right.
that is magnificent.
Absolutely. And I will also tell you that he and I were both at JFK centennial of his birth celebration.
Yep.
And I was standing next to him, and he's chatting away as he's looking at scores, of course, because he's a sports guy.
Yep.
And then he went up and spoke about JFK in the most eloquent manner and talked about how JFK had inspired him.
Yeah.
There's a guy who was able to see through whatever the argument of the day was. And I have to say, these arguments are important because it makes a big difference about what direction we go in. We have to fight. We have to struggle to do what we think is best for the country. But we do not have to rip into somebody and pretend that there's no value to them. And I watched John McCain do that again and again. And so I'm hoping, and I'm watching other Republicans out there who are speaking up and speaking out.
Yeah.
And I am starting to feel more hopeful that they can, recreate a
Yeah.
party that I'll probably not agree with most of the time, but we'll all be able to.
We can all
That's
agree that
wonderful.
we're for the best for our country.
And I
at
think
least.
that's a
We'll
good
be
spot
able
to end the show.
respect the differences.
Hey, Carol,
Yeah,
thank
so,
you. Thank you so much for calling in. It's been a delight to have you here. I'm so glad you're so active, and that you've got that good vibe going, and your social interests are, you're really out there, and we really appreciate it. It'd be easy to just be into the grandchildren. I'm glad you are that too. But thank you so much.
Yes.
And
Thank you. So nice to talk to you guys.
It's just
Good
a
to talk to
delight.
you.
Stay well.
We'll do it again.
Well,
And next week, folks,
Looking forward to it.
Mike and I'll be
Thanks
here
for calling,
with
Carol.
Chris Pappas. And we won't have to talk about people, what they think about his campaign. We can talk to Chris himself about that.
That's
So
gonna be a
tune in
great
next
show.
week. That'll
Great
be
show,
the
folks.
last show before we vote. And we're very excited that Chris will join us. And I hope you will join us too. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll be back next week with another edition of the Progress Report.
See you next week, folks.